So we're continuing Unit 6. We are on page 13 on the current website pages. In the old pages, this would be page 17, not on 16, 17. Regarding Zmira B'Shinui, once again, for the Menucha of surname Dangor and Sir Moses Montefiore, we are continuing the discussion regarding Zmira. We've just discussed the issue of, is Zmira a very specific for grapevines to encourage growth of new fruit, or is it a more broad, pruning, whatever that means? Now, the Rambam writes, "Ein kotetzin betulat shikma b'shvit kedel shekotetzin b'shar shanim, shekitzitzata avodat ilan, שבקציצה זאת תגדל ותוסיף, צריך להציע הקוצץ אותה שלא כדרך עבודתה." Sorry? So, betulat shikma, we discussed what is the betulat shikma. Betulat shikma, the first time you cut it, it causes a great enhancement in growth. That's why the word betula is part of the word, because it has to be cut the first time in order to enhance its growth significantly. It's generally used. It was used then prevalently for the wood, for the timber, because it was good wood apparently. And so when we cut the betulat shikma, two things happen. Number one is I have wood for my bookcase, which is good. Now, apart from the wood for my bookcase, I'm also enhancing the following growth. Every time I cut it, it grows a bit better, unless I cut it not quite accurately. So the Rambam says, based on the Mishnah, says, don't cut it quite accurately, so that it'll only grow back the way it was and not enhance the growth. Says Mikdash David, Hine.
Wait, so that you said, or
what? Sorry?
Don't cut it accurately, because it won't improve the growth.
Right? It'll enhance the growth. I'm translating the Rambam. If you cut it the right way, so you do shelo. Why?
I was wondering.
Or say.
Does that mean because it doesn't enhance the growth? Okay. It's not quite the same. It's different.
In what sense is not quite the same? Explain. Good. You say that was the next point of the Shiur. So go ahead.
Shouldn't do the which does.
Why? And then if you change, then what? If you do differently, then what? All right. So that right. Very good. Mula. So there are two ways. Excellent. There are two ways of, say, if you translate the word Mula, there are two ways of understanding what's the point of the Shinui here, right? You can say it's a din in Shinui. It might be that it enhances the growth just as much, but that doesn't bother us, as long as there's the right, just like in many other things, right? Many halachot d'oraita. It's not the malacha d'oraita if you did b'shinui, and since your intention is to use, so two things happen, right? As we discussed last time about psik reshas, right? Two things happened. Number one, you did b'shinui. Number two, you didn't do it in order to create new growth. You did it because you needed a bookcase. So the other option is to say, if you cut it a certain way, then it will enhance the growth. You cut it differently, it won't. Says Mikdash David, Hine lo katav beofen she'eno mo'il le'ilan, ela shelo kedach avodata. Dr. Ellis was cheating. Stam chalila. V'nir dekol lidei shinui shari. So Mikdash David says, as long as you do b'shinu, you're good. Even if it does enhance the growth, even if it does enhance the growth, be clear there. It doesn't matter. What you do b'shinu. So again, your intention here. So we have two things, right? You did it differently from the normal way, and your intention was not to encourage more growth. So it's okay. So you're good. Now see, Rav Elyashiv brought in Rav Kanievsky. תשובה ממורי חמיד, בשביעית חייב אף אם עושה בשינוי. לגבי שביעית לא באים מלאכת מחשבת. מה שכתב תוספות במועד קטן על ידי שינוי לאו מלאכה, זה דווקא כשהשינוי בחגישה עצמה, כשהשינוי באופן הפעולה שעוסק לאחר יד, אבל התוצאה הוא כאילו היה עוסק כדרכה, בזה יש חילוק בין שבת לשביעית. This is not only שבת ושביעית. I'll give you a couple of other examples. There is a halacha if Khalila anyone wants to get divorced. Khalila, no one in this room and no one hearing this share. Ever. Not ever hearing this year in the future on YouTube either. There's a halacha v'katavla. If a person wants to get divorced, he has to write, right? All right. So the Gemara says you have to write. So you have to write with your strong hand, right? With the right hand, presumably, right? That's what's called the right hand, right? Because you write with. If you write with the left hand, it's possible. Why? Because you understand the katavla. You didn't write in the normal way. Now, what about if someone's perfectly ambidextrous? There's no difference, and he really does control the pen just as well with the right or left hand. The answer is then he could write with either one. Why? On Shabbos, we wouldn't necessarily say that. What? Why? Because the outcome is the same. There's no difference. If the outcome is the same, if the outcome is identical, it doesn't matter. The whole point of the ketiva, why is the ketiva with the left hand, right? Why is writing with the left hand not considered the katav? Because that's the way you write. You don't write with your left hand. The writing, the handwriting is deficient. On Shabbos, you don't think like that. On Shabbos, if you turn the light on with your elbow, so that's called b'shinui. Even though the light doesn't care how you flick the switch, right? The electricity doesn't care. But when it comes to Shabbos, Melechet Machshevet refers to Shabbos in such a way that when it comes to Shabbos, there's a difference between the way you do it counts. When it comes to most halachot, that's a special din regarding Shabbat. When it comes to most halachot, most of the Torah, those shinuim don't matter. And that's why Rav Eliashiv says, if this was Shabbos, I understand. You're going to do it with your left hand. The outcome will be identical. You're going to do the left hand, fine. But if the outcome here is identical, and he says the outcome doesn't mean that you cut the tree exactly where anyone else would cut the tree. You cut the tree in the wrong place. But the outcome is identical. Why do I care where you cut the tree? I only care about the outcome. You cut the tree in such a way that will cause it that will effectively be pruning. It will encourage better growth of the tree. That's the issue. The issue isn't how you did it. So you do it with your left hand, you'll press the button with the button of the machine with the left hand, or you'll use your axe backhand. It doesn't matter. The point isn't how you do it. Now you'll note that, again, presumably we're talking about 3 kinds of shinui here. That's important to point out. Mikdash David is not talking about using your left hand to press the button or using your axe backhand. Mikdash David is saying there's an outcome of cutting the what's it called? What? The trunk. Thank you. The trunk here or here. It's 2 different places, and anyone will tell you the right place to cut is here. Why are you cutting here? Right? This is the proper place. Why are you cutting here? Right? The outcome in that sense is different. But in terms of the pruning, the outcome is identical because the tree doesn't care where you cut it. The tree isn't all the other trees that know to make fun of the other trees and say, you guys did it, right? All the tree knows is that you cut it in such a way that, right, in its DNA or whatever, right, it's going to grow better next time. And therefore that's called pruning, right? The Mikdash David says that's not the agriculturists. The agriculturists know there's not the way to do it, and therefore it's a shinui. It doesn't count. The Rav Eliashiv said that only works if the outcome is also different and different. The outcome, when we say the outcome, we mean that the effect on the tree will be different. Now, of course, the tree is affected differently if you cut here or here, because then the question is, does this part exist? But it's not the fundamental question. The fundamental question is, did you do something that will encourage growth? Because that's, when I say pruning, I mean doing something that will encourage growth by cutting it. So that seems to be the machloket. What are you saying? In this specific sense, correct. Sorry. So, see Rav Kook. שווה להורות, בעזרת השם, אפילו במקום דחק, שתהיה זמירתם בשינוי. כבר דקדקתי בזה ומצאתי, שאי אפשר לעשות שום שינוי באופן הזמירה שיהיה בלתי מזיק, ולא יקלקל את המלאכה. כי אם על ידי מה שתחת אשר בכל השנים דרך חתיכת הבדים וזמרים היא ישרה, כמו שחותך את הצנון וכיוצא בזה בקו ישר, תהיה חתיכה רשמית כשתהיה מוכרחת לעשות על ידי ישראל בקו אלכסוני. But otherwise identical, cutting the same place exactly, because you cut different in different place, that will be detrimental to the tree. You'll be harming the tree. So instead of cutting like this, cut like that. But otherwise, same place.
That's not the same thing.
Right?
But that means the outcome is
Cutting anywhere else would be right. I agree. I don't know about now. I don't know if this is true about B'tulat Shikma, because they're talking about trees here. What? They're talking about trees here, not about B'tulat Shikma. But wait, what's going on here? Oh, consider. So that's just an interesting point about Shinui when it comes to Zmira. First of all, fundamental point about Shinui, and you're right that when it comes to that, the way Rav Kook is saying, presumably, it seems like there isn't much of a difference in the end, right? Ultimately, you end up in the same place because the question is moot, kitzur, right? But it is still a nice chakira. Come on, man. You have to give us that. All right.